The morning sky over New York City had been perfectly clear until the shadows appeared. At first, people thought they were clouds. But clouds don't cast shadows that sharp, that dark, or that perfectly geometric. Admiral Jack Morrison was drinking his third cup of coffee in the Pentagon when every alarm in the building started screaming at once. His aide, a young lieutenant with shaking hands, burst through his door without knocking. "Sir, you need to see this right now," the lieutenant said, pointing at the wall screen that flickered to life. The image showed something impossible. Above Manhattan, floating like a giant crystal mountain, was a ship. It wasn't like anything from Earth's science fiction movies. This vessel seemed to bend light around itself, making it hard to look at directly. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "How many?" Morrison asked, already knowing the answer would be bad. 73 ships, sir, over every major city on Earth. London, Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing, Los Angeles. They all appeared at exactly the same moment. Dr. Lisa Rodriguez was in her lab at the Global Science Consortium when her phone exploded with calls. As Earth's leading expert on the possibility of alien contact, she had spent 20 years preparing for this day. But seeing the massive ships on her computer screen, she realized no one could have prepared for this. The ships were not just big. They were enormous. Each one was at least 5 miles long and covered in what looked like living crystal that pulsed with soft blue light. They made no sound and showed no sign of weapons, but their very presence felt threatening. Captain Ryan Webb was leading a training flight over Nevada when his radio crackled with emergency orders. "All units return to base immediately. This is not a drill. We have unknown contacts over major population centers." Webb looked up through his fighter's canopy and saw it. Even from hundreds of miles away, the ship over Las Vegas was clearly visible, hanging in the sky like a sword over the city. In Washington, D.C., President Maria Santos was pulled from a budget meeting into the Situation Room. The room was packed with military leaders, scientists and advisors all talking at once. The wall screens showed the same impossible sight from dozens of cities around the world. "Do we know anything about their intentions?" Santos asked. "Nothing yet, Madam President," replied General Harrison. "They haven't responded to any communication attempts. They're just waiting." That's when every screen in the room went black, not just in the Situation Room, but everywhere. Every television, every computer monitor, every smartphone screen on Earth turned off for exactly 3 seconds. When they came back on, there was a face. It was almost human, but not quite. The skin was too pale, the eyes too large and silver. When it spoke, the voice came from every speaker on Earth at the same time. "People of Earth," the alien said in perfect English, though somehow everyone on the planet heard it in their own language. "I am Commander Zeth of the Hegemony. Your world has been selected for integration into our empire. This is not a negotiation. This is an announcement." The alien's silver eyes seemed to look directly at each person watching. "You have 72 hours to prepare for relocation. Your governments will surrender all authority to hegemony administrators. Your military forces will stand down. Your people will be transported to designated colony worlds where you will serve the greater good of our empire." President Santos felt ice in her veins, but she kept her face calm. Around the table, she saw fear, anger, and determination in equal measure. "Resistance is pointless," Commander Zeth continued. "We have conquered 400 worlds. We have absorbed 300 species into our empire. Your technology is primitive. Your weapons cannot harm our ships. Submit peacefully and your species will be preserved. Resist and you will be eliminated." The transmission ended. Every screen on Earth returned to normal programming, but nothing was normal anymore. Within minutes, phone lines were jammed. Internet servers crashed from the traffic. Some people ran through the streets screaming. Others stood perfectly still, staring at the ships above their cities. Many simply went home to be with their families. Dr. Rodriguez was already at work, analyzing everything she could about the transmission. The aliens' technology was incredible, but the message itself told her something important. They were giving Earth time to surrender. That meant they either wanted humans alive for some reason, or they were not as powerful as they claimed. Admiral Morrison was coordinating with military leaders around the world. The first reports were not encouraging. Jet fighters had tried to approach the ships and were simply ignored. Missiles fired at the vessels had exploded harmlessly against invisible shields. But Morrison had been a soldier for 30 years, and he knew that everything had a weakness. Captain Webb was back at his base, helping to prepare every aircraft they had. His squadron was scared, but they were also angry. Earth was their home, and no alien empire was going to take it without a fight. In cities around the world, people were making their own choices. Some packed their belongings, ready to accept whatever fate the aliens had planned. Others were cleaning their weapons, preparing to fight even if it meant death. Most were simply trying to process the fact that humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and that their new neighbors wanted to enslave them. President Santos called an emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council. Representatives from every nation on Earth gathered via video link, all looking up occasionally at the ships hovering over their capitals. "We need to discuss our response," Santos began. "What response?" asked the British Prime Minister. "They have ships the size of cities. We have nothing that can touch them." "We have something they don't," Santos replied. "We have the home advantage. This is our world, our people, our fight. And we have something else they clearly don't understand." "What's that?" asked the German Chancellor. "We're human," Santos said simply. "And humans don't surrender our homes to anyone." The debate that followed would determine the fate of every person on Earth. Some leaders wanted to negotiate, to find some middle ground. Others demanded immediate surrender to save lives. But a growing number were reaching the same conclusion as President Santos. Earth would not go quietly into the alien empire. As the first day of the ultimatum ended, the ships continued their silent watch over humanity's cities. But below them, something was stirring. Something the hegemony had never encountered in 400 conquered worlds. Humanity was getting angry. The second day began with riots in some cities and prayer meetings in others. But in places the aliens couldn't see, something unexpected was happening. Humans were organizing. Dr. Kevin Murphy hadn't slept since the ships arrived. In his laboratory beneath MIT, he was studying every piece of data about the alien vessels. His team of graduate students worked beside him, running calculations and building models of the strange crystalline structures. "The ships are definitely using some kind of energy shield," Murphy told his exhausted team. "But look at this pattern. The energy pulses every 4.7 seconds. That's not random. It's like a heartbeat." Lisa Rodriguez had been moved to a secure bunker beneath the Pentagon, where she worked with teams of linguists and scientists. They were analyzing the aliens' broadcast, looking for any clue about their technology or intentions. "The way he spoke was interesting," she explained to Admiral Morrison. "He said they've absorbed 300 species but conquered 400 worlds. That means 100 species chose to fight and lost." "What happened to those 100 species?" Morrison asked. "That's what we need to find out," Rodriguez replied grimly. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Amy Peterson volunteered for the most dangerous job in the military. Someone needed to get close to the alien ships and gather intelligence. Peterson was a test pilot, used to flying experimental aircraft that might explode at any moment. "I'll take a stealth fighter up tonight," she told her commanding officer. "If I can get within a mile of one of those ships, maybe we can learn something useful." "And if they shoot you down?" he asked. "Then we'll learn they don't want us getting close," Peterson answered with a grin that didn't quite hide her fear. In Detroit, a civilian engineer named Jake Thompson was turning his factory into something the government didn't know about. Thompson had read history books. He knew that when armies invaded countries, there were always people who fought back from the shadows. "We're not building cars anymore," he told his workers. "We're building the tools we'll need if this goes bad." Some of his employees quit and went home to their families. But most stayed. They welded steel plates into armor. They modified trucks into mobile weapons platforms. They dug tunnels connecting their factory to the subway system. Nicole Davis was only 19, but she was the best computer hacker in her college. While world leaders debated surrender, Nicole was trying to break into the alien communication systems. She had no idea if it would work, but she had to try. "Their ships are definitely talking to each other," she told her roommate. "There's data flowing between them constantly. If I can tap into that signal, maybe I can learn what they're really planning." President Santos had not slept either. She spent the night on secure phone calls with world leaders trying to build a consensus. Some countries wanted to fight. Others wanted to surrender immediately. A few were trying to negotiate their own separate deals with the aliens. "We need to present a united front," Santos argued during a video conference with NATO leaders. "If we fight together. If we surrender together. But we cannot let them divide us." The British Prime Minister looked tired and scared. "Maria, they have technology we can barely understand. Fighting them is suicide." Maybe, Santos replied. But surrendering might be suicide too. We don't know what they really want from us. What if their colony worlds are death camps? What if they plan to use humans as slaves or food? That afternoon, Commander Zeth appeared on every screen again. This time he looked annoyed. People of Earth, he began. We have observed your military preparations. This is foolish. You cannot harm our ships. You cannot escape your planet. Accept your fate with dignity. But then he said something that made Dr. Rodriguez sit up straight. We offer this final opportunity for peaceful integration. Many species have joined our empire voluntarily after seeing our power. Those who fight us are eliminated completely. Choose wisely. After the transmission ended, Rodriguez called President Santos immediately. He's lying, she said. If they've really conquered 400 worlds, why are they giving us so many chances to surrender? Why haven't they just attacked? What are you thinking? Santos asked. I think they prefer not to fight. Maybe conquest is expensive for them. Maybe they've never faced real resistance before. Or maybe they're not as powerful as they want us to believe. As the second night fell, Lieutenant Peterson took off in her modified stealth fighter. She flew dark and silent toward the ship hovering over Washington, D.C. Her heart pounded as she got closer to the massive vessel. At 2 miles away, nothing happened. At 1 mile, still nothing. Peterson activated every sensor her plane carried and began recording everything she could see. The ship was even more beautiful up close. The crystal surface seemed to flow like water, but it was solid. Strange symbols appeared and disappeared on its hull. Most importantly, she could see what looked like docking bays and weapon ports. It's definitely a warship, she reported over her secure radio. But I'm not seeing any weapons pointed at Earth. They're all aimed outward toward space. That was when Peterson noticed something else. Small craft were moving between the alien ships, but they stayed high in the atmosphere. None of them came down toward Earth's surface. Control, I think they're afraid of something. They're keeping their distance from our planet. Peterson's discovery spread quickly through military channels. If the aliens were staying away from Earth's surface, there had to be a reason. Maybe Earth's atmosphere was harmful to them. Maybe their technology didn't work well in strong gravity fields. Or maybe they were just being careful. Jake Thompson's factory was now connected to similar operations in 12 cities. Auto plants were making armor. Electronics factories were building communication equipment. Even food processing plants were being converted to produce military rations. If we're going to fight, Thompson told his coordination team over secure radio, we need to be ready to fight for a long time. Even if they destroy the government and the military, we keep going. Nicole Davis finally got a breakthrough. She managed to intercept a brief alien transmission between 2 ships. She couldn't understand the language, but she could analyze the signal structure. It's not some super advanced technology, she told her professor excitedly. It's just really, really complex radio waves. If I can figure out their frequency patterns, maybe I can jam their communications. By the end of the second day, something had changed on Earth. The panic was fading, replaced by determination. Humans who had never met were working together on secret projects. Military forces that had been enemies for generations were sharing intelligence and resources. President Santos prepared for what might be her last speech to the nation. She had made her decision, and she hoped history would prove her right. My fellow Americans and citizens of Earth, she began. In 18 hours, the alien ultimatum expires. They have demanded our surrender, our freedom, and our world. Some have advised that we should accept their terms to save lives, but I believe that some things are worth dying for. She paused, looking directly into the camera. We are not cattle to be herded. We are not resources to be harvested. We are human beings, and this is our home. If they want our world, they will have to take it from us, and we will make them pay for every mile. The speech was broadcast around the world. In some places, people wept. In others, they cheered. But everywhere, humans made the same choice their leaders had made. Earth would not surrender. Above the cities, the alien ships continued their silent watch. But their commanders were reporting something troubling to their fleet leaders. This species was not behaving like the others. Instead of breaking under pressure, they seemed to be getting stronger. For the first time in the hegemony's expansion, they were facing something they had never encountered before. A species that chose defiance over survival. With 18 hours left on the alien ultimatum, Dr. Kevin Murphy made the discovery that would change everything. He had been awake for 46 hours straight, living on coffee and determination, when he saw the pattern. "The shield pulses aren't random," he announced to his team. "They're synchronized with Earth's magnetic field. The aliens are using our own planet's magnetosphere to power their defenses." His graduate assistant, a young woman named Jenny, looked up from her computer. "What does that mean?" "It means we might be able to disrupt them," Murphy said, his eyes wide with exhaustion and excitement. "If we can create a massive electromagnetic pulse using Earth's magnetic field as an amplifier, we could shut down their shields. But it would have to be perfectly timed, and it would probably destroy most of our own electronics too." Meanwhile, Colonel Steve Parker was leading a team of Special Forces soldiers through the sewers beneath Washington, D.C. They had spent 2 days mapping every tunnel, every access point, every possible route to reach the alien ship when the fighting started. "Remember," Parker whispered to his team, "we're not trying to win. We're trying to buy time for the scientists and gather intelligence. If we can capture even one piece of their technology, it might give us an advantage." His men nodded. They all knew this was likely a suicide mission, but they had volunteered anyway. Earth was their home, and they would defend it even if it meant death. Dr. Rachel Kim was working with Murphy's team on the technical details of their electromagnetic pulse plan. Kim was a quantum physicist who specialized in the interaction between magnetic fields and exotic matter. "The problem is coordination," she explained to Admiral Morrison during a video call. "We need every major power plant, every radio telescope, every satellite dish on Earth to work together at exactly the same moment. If we're off by even a few seconds, it won't work." "How long do we have to set this up?" Morrison asked. "Maybe 8 hours," Kim replied. "After that, the alien ships will be in the wrong position relative to our magnetic poles." Tony Martinez was the man tasked with coordinating the most complex communication effort in human history. As Earth's top telecommunications expert, he had to connect power grids, military bases, and scientific installations across the globe. "The aliens can intercept our communications," Martinez told his team. "So we're going to use the old methods. Ham radio, physical messengers, even smoke signals if we have to. Every facility gets their orders at the same time, and then we go dark until the moment of attack." Ashley Turner was aboard the International Space Station, humanity's eyes in space. From her orbit high above Earth, she could see the alien fleet more clearly than anyone on the surface. "There are more ships coming," she reported during an encrypted transmission to Mission Control. "I count at least 20 vessels approaching from the direction of Jupiter. They should arrive in about 6 hours. The news sent a chill through the command centers on Earth. The aliens were bringing reinforcements. Whatever humanity was planning, they had to do it before those ships arrived. Captain Ryan Webb was preparing his fighter squadron for what everyone knew would be their last mission. The plan was simple and desperate. When the electromagnetic pulse disabled the alien shields, Earth's fighters would have a few minutes to cause as much damage as possible before the shields came back online. "We're not going to win this war today," Webb told his pilots, "but we're going to show these aliens that humans don't give up easy. Every shot you fire, every ship you damage, it all matters. Make them remember us." Lieutenant Amy Peterson had volunteered for the most dangerous part of the mission. While the other fighters attacked the main ships, she would attempt to ram her plane into the command vessel's main power core. It was a one-way trip, but if she succeeded, it might cripple the entire fleet. "You don't have to do this," Webb told her privately. "Yes, I do," Peterson replied. "This is my home too. If I can save it by giving my life, that's a fair trade." Jake Thompson and his network of civilian resistance fighters had spent the night moving weapons and supplies into hidden positions throughout major cities. They had no illusion that they could defeat alien technology, but they could make the occupation costly. "When the attack starts," Thompson told his coordinators, "we hit their landing parties hard and fast, then disappear. We make them afraid to leave their ships. We make them pay for every building, every street corner." Nicole Davis had finally cracked part of the alien communication code. She couldn't understand their language, but she could identify which signals were orders and which were status reports. "I can jam their communications for maybe 30 minutes, she told the military commanders. "But after that, they'll adapt to whatever I'm doing. You'll have to make those 30 minutes count." President Santos was in the deepest bunker beneath the White House, coordinating with world leaders as they prepared for humanity's desperate gamble. She had authorized the use of every nuclear weapon on Earth if necessary, but she hoped it wouldn't come to that. "This is our moment," she told the assembled leaders during their final conference call. Whatever happens in the next few hours will determine whether humanity survives as a free species or dies fighting for our freedom. I'm proud to stand with all of you. Dr. Lisa Rodriguez had been analyzing the alien psychology, trying to understand how they thought and what they expected from their conquered species. They've never faced real resistance before, she told Admiral Morrison. Every other species either surrendered immediately or was destroyed quickly. They don't know how to handle a prolonged fight with a species that refuses to quit. As the final hours ticked away, Murphy and Kim's teams worked frantically to prepare their electromagnetic pulse weapon. It was the most ambitious scientific project ever attempted, requiring precise coordination across the entire planet. We get one shot at this, Murphy reminded everyone. If it doesn't work, we won't get another chance. Power plants across the world were secretly modified to overload their generators at exactly the right moment. Radio telescopes were aligned to focus Earth's magnetic field energy. Military installations prepared to channel every bit of power they had into the global pulse. Colonel Parker's teams took their positions in tunnels and buildings around the alien ships. They carried experimental weapons built from captured alien technology and human innovation. Nobody knew if the weapons would work, but they were about to find out. Captain Webb's fighters were armed with everything Earth's military could provide. Nuclear-tipped missiles, experimental energy weapons, even modified artillery shells designed to penetrate alien armor. If the shields went down, they would throw everything they had at the invaders. As the sun set on what might be Earth's last day of freedom, Commander Zeth appeared on screens around the world one final time. "People of Earth," he began, "your time has expired. We have been patient, but our patience is at an end. You have chosen resistance over wisdom. You will now face the consequences of that choice." The transmission ended, and across the Earth, humans held their breath. President Santos looked around the command bunker at the faces of her advisors and generals. They were scared, but they were determined. In a few minutes, they would find out if humanity's desperate plan could work. "All stations report ready," Martinez announced. "Electromagnetic pulse weapon charged and standing by," Murphy reported. "Fighter squadrons in position." Webb confirmed. "Special forces teams ready," Parker added. Santos took a deep breath. "Then let's show these aliens what humans are made of. Execute Operation Freedom." Around the world, the most complex military operation in human history began. It was humanity's last hope, and their first real chance to strike back against the alien invaders. Above the cities, the alien ships began to glow brighter, preparing to deliver their promised destruction. But below them, humans were about to prove that some species are too stubborn to conquer and too fierce to break. The moment arrived at exactly midnight, coordinated across every time zone on Earth. Dr. Kevin Murphy's voice crackled over secure radio networks around the globe. "Execute electromagnetic pulse in 3, 2, 1. Now, every power plant, radio telescope, and military installation on Earth unleashed their energy at the same instant. The effect was invisible to human eyes, but devastating to alien technology. Above major cities, the crystalline ships flickered like candles in a storm. "Shields are down," Ashley Turner shouted from the International Space Station. "I repeat, alien shields are down." Captain Ryan Webb didn't wait for confirmation. He dove his fighter toward the massive ship over Washington, D.C., his squadron following behind him. For the first time since the aliens arrived, human weapons could reach their targets. "All fighters, attack pattern Delta. Hit them with everything we have," Webb commanded over his radio. The sky erupted in fire and light. Missiles streaked toward the alien vessels while energy weapons carved bright lines through the darkness. The crystalline hulls, beautiful and untouchable just moments before, began to crack and burn under the assault. Lieutenant Amy Peterson aimed her fighter directly at the command ship's glowing power core. She had removed her ejection seat to make room for more explosives. This was a one-way trip, and she was at peace with that choice. "Tell my family I love them," she transmitted to base control, "and tell them I died free." Peterson's plane struck the alien power core at full speed. The explosion lit up the night sky like a second sun. When the light faded, a quarter of the command ship was gone, trailing debris and strange blue energy into the atmosphere. On the ground, Colonel Steve Parker led his special forces teams out of their tunnels and into battle. They carried weapons built from captured alien technology and human engineering, The first alien landing parties were unprepared for ground combat against determined human soldiers. "These aren't civilians running in panic," Parker told his men as they fought through the streets. "These are soldiers who've never faced real resistance. Use that against them." The aliens were individually stronger and better equipped, but they moved like police officers trying to control a crowd. The humans fought like soldiers defending their homes. The difference was immediately obvious. General Paul Harrison coordinated the global military response from his command bunker. Reports flooded in from every continent as human forces engaged the alien invaders. London report successful. "Strikes on 2 alien vessels, 1 aid, announced. "Tokyo Squadron has disabled the main ship's weapons array," reported another. "Moscow ground forces have captured an alien communication device," and came a third report, but the victory was costly. Harrison watched the casualty reports climb as human fighters threw themselves against alien technology. They were winning, but at a terrible price. Dr. Beth Collins was managing the technical aspects of the electromagnetic pulse from her laboratory. The weapon was working, but it was also destroying Earth's electronic infrastructure. "The pulse is overloading our own systems," she reported to President Santos. "We'll have maybe 20 minutes before the aliens adapt and bring their shields back online. After that, we'll be fighting blind and deaf." Marcus Johnson was leading civilian evacuation efforts in New York City. As alien and human forces battled in the sky above, Johnson's teams guided terrified people into subway tunnels and underground shelters. "Stay calm and keep moving," Johnson told the crowds. "Our soldiers are buying us time. Don't waste it." Above the city, the alien ship was listing badly, trailing fire and debris. Human fighters swarmed around it like angry wasps, striking at every weak point they could find. Captain Linda Foster commanded a naval task force in the Pacific, where her ships launched cruise missiles at the alien vessel hovering over Los Angeles. The missiles, armed with nuclear warheads, punched through the disabled alien shields and detonated against the crystalline hull. "Direct hits confirmed," Foster reported. "Target is severely damaged and losing altitude." But even as human forces scored victories around the globe, the aliens were adapting. Their ships began to pulse with different energy patterns, and their shields started to flicker back to life. "Shields are coming back online," Ashley Turner warned from orbit, "and those reinforcement ships are almost here. You have maybe 10 minutes before the situation changes completely." Captain Webb pressed his attack, firing every missile his squadron had left. His fighters were running low on fuel and ammunition, but they had damaged 3 alien ships and completely destroyed 2 others. "This is Webb to all units," he broadcast. "We've proven they can be hurt. We've proven they can be killed. Whatever happens next, remember that." That's when Webb saw the alien reinforcement fleet approaching Earth. 20 fresh warships, their shields at full strength, their weapons charging for retaliation. "New contacts approaching from space," Webb reported grimly. "Looks like they're bringing friends." Colonel Parker's ground teams had captured several alien soldiers and a significant amount of their equipment. The prisoners were surprisingly human-like, but their attitudes were completely alien. They seemed genuinely confused by human resistance. "They keep asking why we're fighting," Parker reported to command. "They don't understand why we won't just surrender and accept relocation. I don't think they've ever encountered a species that values freedom over survival." Nicole Davis was in her element, jamming alien communications and intercepting their battle orders. She had learned enough of their command structure to cause serious disruption. "They're trying to coordinate their response, but I'm scrambling their signals," she reported. "They're basically fighting blind right now, but I can't keep this up much longer." Dr. Lisa Rodriguez was analyzing the captured alien equipment and prisoners. What she learned changed everything humans thought about their invaders. "They're not conquerors," she announced over the command network. "They're administrators. They're used to managing peaceful transitions, not fighting wars. This is why they gave us time to surrender. They don't know how to handle military resistance." President Santos absorbed this information while coordinating humanity's desperate battle. If the aliens were administrators rather than warriors, it meant they could be beaten. But it also meant they would call for help from someone who specialized in warfare. "How long before they bring in their military forces?" Santos asked Rodriguez. "Based on their communication patterns, maybe hours, maybe days. But when they come, they won't give us chances to surrender." Jake Thompson and his civilian resistance network had prepared for this moment. As alien forces tried to establish control in major cities, Thompson's people struck from the shadows. Modified civilian vehicles, armored and armed, emerged from hidden garages. Factory workers turned soldiers attacked alien positions with weapons built in automotive plants. Even children contributed, carrying messages and supplies through tunnels the aliens didn't know existed. "This is our home," Thompson told his fighters. "Every street, every building, every subway tunnel. We know this ground better than they ever will." As the 20-minute window of the electromagnetic pulse effect began to close, human forces around the world prepared for the next phase of the battle. They had proven that alien technology could be beaten, but they had also revealed their own capabilities to the enemy. Dr. Murphy's team was already working on a second electromagnetic pulse, but it would take hours to recharge the global power grid. The next phase of the battle would have to be fought with conventional weapons against enemies with restored shields. Admiral Morrison looked at the tactical displays showing the global battle. Humanity had achieved something impossible. They had fought the hegemony to a standstill and damaged their fleet significantly, but the cost had been enormous and the fight was far from over. "All units, this is Morrison," he broadcast to every human force engaged in combat. "You have proven today that no species has the right to conquer another. You have shown the galaxy that humans will not go quietly into slavery. Whatever happens next, you have already won the most important victory. You have kept our honor intact." Above Earth cities, the alien ships struggled to restore their systems and coordinate their response. Several vessels were destroyed or crippled, and their crews were learning a hard lesson about human determination. But in space, the reinforcement fleet was preparing to show humanity what real warfare looked like. The battle for Earth had only just begun, but humans had already proven something that would echo throughout the galaxy. Some species are too stubborn to conquer, too fierce to break, and too united in their defiance to ever truly defeat. The aliens had expected to add Earth to their empire in 72 hours. Instead, they found themselves in the first real war they had fought in generations, against an enemy that seemed to grow more dangerous the harder it was pressed. 18 hours after the first human attack, something unprecedented in hegemony history occurred. The alien reinforcement fleet, which had approached Earth ready to crush human resistance, came to a complete stop just outside the asteroid belt. Ashley Turner, still aboard the International Space Station, was the first to notice the change. "Command, the alien reinforcements have stopped moving. They're just sitting there about 3 million miles out." Admiral Morrison studied the reports from every battle zone on Earth. The fighting had continued through the night, but something was different. The aliens were defending themselves, but they weren't pressing their attacks. They seemed to be waiting for something. Dr. Lisa Rodriguez had spent the hours since the battle began interviewing the captured alien soldiers. What she learned explained everything. "They're scared," she announced during an emergency meeting with President Santos and the military leadership. "Not of dying. They're scared of us. They've never encountered a species that fights back effectively, and they don't know how to handle it." "What do you mean?" Santos asked. "In 400 years of expansion, they've developed a system. They arrive, they announce integration, species either surrender or get eliminated quickly, but we're not following their script. We fought them to a standstill, and now they don't know what to do next." Colonel Steve Parker's ground teams had captured more alien equipment and soldiers during the night fighting. The prisoners all told the same story. The hegemony was not primarily a military organization. They were bureaucrats who managed an empire built by someone else long ago. "They keep asking to speak to our surrender negotiators," Parker reported. "They can't believe we don't have officials ready to arrange our capitulation. The concept of fighting to the death for freedom is completely alien to them." Captain Jordan Hayes had taken command of Ryan Webb's fighter squadron after Webb's heroic sacrifice during the battle. Hayes was preparing her pilots for what everyone expected to be a final, desperate assault when the aliens made an unexpected communication. Commander Zeth appeared on screens around the world, but he looked very different than before. His silver eyes showed something that looked almost like fear. "People of Earth," he began, "the Hegemony Council has authorized me to discuss alternative arrangements for your integration into our empire." President Santos, watching from her command bunker, felt a spark of hope. "They want to negotiate. Your species has demonstrated capabilities that were not anticipated," Zeth continued. Perhaps there is a place in our empire for beings of your unique characteristics. We are prepared to discuss terms that might be more acceptable to your people. Ambassador Helen Carter, who had been standing by for weeks in case diplomatic contact became possible, stepped forward. Madam President, they're offering to negotiate. This is what we hoped for. But Dr. Rodriguez shook her head. It's not negotiation they're offering. It's still surrender, just with better terms. They still expect us to give up our freedom and our world. Santos made a decision that would define humanity's future. Patch me through to every communication system on Earth and in space. I want to address not just our world, but theirs too. Within minutes, President Santos was broadcasting to Earth and to the hegemony fleet. Her words would be heard by both human defenders and alien invaders. Commander Zeth, people of Earth, and forces of the hegemony. She began, I am President Maria Santos of the United Earth Coalition. I speak for all humanity when I say this. We reject your integration. We reject your empire. We reject any arrangement that requires us to surrender our freedom or our world. She paused, looking directly into the camera. But we offer you something your empire has apparently never experienced. We offer you the chance to retreat with honor. Leave our system now and we will not pursue you. Stay. And we will continue to fight until every human being on Earth is dead. The transmission reached not just the alien fleet around Earth, but ships throughout the hegemony empire. On dozens of worlds, species that had surrendered generations ago heard a voice they had never heard before. The voice of successful resistance. Jake Thompson and his resistance network had spent the night setting up hidden factories and weapons caches. They were preparing for a guerrilla war that could last for decades, but Thompson was listening to Santos's speech with growing excitement. She's not just talking to the aliens here, he told his coordinators. She's talking to their whole empire. Every species they've conquered is hearing this. Nicole Davis had been monitoring alien communications throughout the night. What she discovered changed everything about humanity's understanding of their situation. The alien reinforcement fleet isn't just stopping, she reported. They're arguing among themselves. I'm picking up massive communication traffic between their ships. I think there's some kind of internal conflict happening. Dr. Sam Rodriguez, Lisa's brother and a philosopher who had been brought in to help understand alien psychology, had a theory about what was happening. The hegemony has built their entire system on the assumption that intelligent species will choose survival over freedom. He explained, we've just proven that assumption wrong. If one species can successfully resist them, others might try the same thing. That's when the most surprising communication of the war came through. It wasn't from Commander Zeth or the hegemony leadership. It was from someone else entirely. A new alien face appeared on Earth screens. This one was younger than Zeth, with the same silver eyes but a very different expression. When she spoke, her voice was filled with something that sounded almost like admiration. People of Earth, I am Subcommander Kira of the Hegemony Science Fleet. I am broadcasting this message against direct orders from my superiors. President Santos and her advisors watched in amazement as the young alien continued. Your resistance has inspired something that our empire thought was extinct, hope. There are many within the hegemony who question our methods, who believe that forced integration is wrong. Your example has given us courage to speak. The transmission was suddenly cut off, but the message had been received. There were allies within the alien empire itself. Captain Linda Foster reported from the Pacific Fleet that the alien ship over Los Angeles was withdrawing from Earth's atmosphere. Similar reports came in from around the world. The hegemony forces were pulling back, not in defeat, but in confusion. Commander Zeth made one final transmission to Earth. This matter is not concluded, he said. But his voice lacked the confidence it had held just days before. The Hegemony Council will decide how to proceed. You have complicated our normal procedures. Dr. Beth Collins was monitoring the withdrawal from her laboratory. They're not retreating like a defeated army, she observed. They're withdrawing like administrators who need to consult their superiors about an unexpected situation. As the alien fleet moved away from Earth, the scope of humanity's victory became clear. They had not just survived the first contact with a hostile alien empire, they had broken that empire's most fundamental assumption about how intelligent species behave. Ambassador Carter established communication with Subcommander Kira and other hegemony officials who had begun questioning their empire's expansion policies. These aliens, inspired by humanity's resistance, were organizing their own rebellion within the hegemony power structure. They're calling themselves the Liberation Front, Carter reported. They want to work with us to reform the hegemony from within, to free the worlds that have been conquered. President Santos addressed the world one final time as the alien fleet disappeared beyond the outer planets. Citizens of Earth, defenders of freedom, she began. We have faced annihilation and emerged not just intact but stronger. We have proven that no empire has the right to conquer free beings. We have inspired others throughout the galaxy to question their oppression. She looked directly into the camera, knowing her words would spread far beyond Earth. We are humanity. We do not yield. We do not break. And we do not forgive unprovoked aggression. To any who would threaten Earth or her people, know this. We have faced annihilation and emerged stronger. We have turned administrators into warriors and warriors into allies. Test us at your own peril. In the weeks that followed, reports reached Earth from across the galaxy. On 17 worlds, species that had been integrated into the hegemony generations ago began organizing resistance movements. The message that a small blue planet had successfully defied the Empire spread like wildfire. Admiral Morrison, surveying the damage and the victory, realized that this was just the beginning. The hegemony would return, but they would never again underestimate humanity. And humanity, having tasted both the bitter cost of war and the sweet taste of defiant victory, was already preparing for the larger conflict to come. Dr. Kevin Murphy was working on improved electromagnetic weapons. Jake Thompson was expanding his resistance network to other planets. Nicole Davis was teaching alien rebels how to disrupt hegemony communications. Earth had announced itself to the universe not as victims or supplicants, but as the species that taught the galaxy's greatest empire that some beings are too stubborn to conquer, too fierce to break, and too united in their defiance to ever truly defeat. The hegemony had come to Earth expecting to add another world to